Let's take a deeper look at today's budget presentation. Joining me live from Abuja is the Director General of the Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry, Mr. Muda Yusuf. Thanks for joining us on the news at 10.
Thank you very much, Ijoma. Good evening.
Okay, let me just start off from what played out as the president tried to make that presentation. You know, for a sitting president to be heckled like that, what do you make of the conduct of the distinguished lawmakers today?
Well, I don't think that was a distinguished conduct. We have been in this democracy for almost 19 years, unbroken. And one would have thought that by now we will have matured in the way we do things, in our conduct and all of that. So the conduct today, I think, is not something that, that projects the National Assembly in good light. I think they could do much better than what they did today.
And when you look at the proceedings, the gavel was totally ignored today. You know, the chief whip did his best, you know, as the president was speaking about the gains in the economy, you know, talking about how the economy is out of recession. Is there any truth to that? Does this budget of continuity reflect the sentiments of the lawmakers? That's what I mean, rather than truth. Does it reflect their sentiments?
Well, I think what has played out is more of the politics of it, rather than the facts of the figures or the numbers. You can see the dichotomy, the way those who are cheering and those who are booing the president and so on. It was sharply divided along partisan lines. So this doesn't have much to do, in my view, with the merit or otherwise of either the budget or the implementation track record. I think there are some other underlying factors that must have been responsible for this conduct. So it's about politics, by and large. That is the way I see it.
Okay, when you look at the budget in the end, I mean, it was laid at last, in spite of everything that happened. There are lower figures in this budget compared to 2018. You see recurrent at 4.04 trillion, and I think capital at 2.031. What do you make of it, seeing as there's been a lot of talk about boosting capital expenditure in the last couple of years?
Well, the budget, in my view, is a very small budget. If you compare the budget to the size of this economy, it is very, very small. And when we look at this relativity, you conclude that it is not likely that the budget of this size can make any significant impact on the economy, particularly on the infrastructure space. This budget is just about 5% of our GDP. The budget is 8.3 trillion. Our GDP is about 113 trillion. So we are looking at just about 5%, which is also an equivalent of about 24 billion US dollars. South Africa, which has a smaller economy, just slightly over 300 billion, has a budget of over $100 billion. Angola, which is also even a much smaller economy, has a budget of over 40 billion US dollars.
Okay, but
so here we are, an economy of 200 million people, an economy of a size of about 450 billion, the largest on the continent, with a budget of 24 billion. So this is why at the end of each budget cycle, we don't see any significant impact, because the budget in relation to the size of the economy is too small.
Okay, I mean, looking at what we have,
it's a major challenge.
If I could just come in there. Yes, it's too small, but that's what we have for now. I'm interested in the figure for debt servicing, looking at the issue of local and foreign debt, that overhang that's been hotly debated in economic circles. We see that figure at 2.14 trillion. What do you think about that, finally now?
Yes, the figures are large relative to the entire numbers. But you see, when you have a small pie, by the time you take out recurrent expenditure, which is about 4 trillion, by the time you take out the debt servicing, which is also 2 trillion, what is left in the budget? The total revenue in this budget is 6 trillion. The current expenditure plus the debt servicing is also 6 trillion. So what that is telling us is that the entire revenue is being consumed by both recurrent and debt service. So that means for you to invest in capital expenditure, you have to borrow. So it's a very serious situation. It's a major issue. It's a very fundamental issue, which touches on the structure of the economy and the way the economy is being run. And I must say that this is a major structural problem. It's not just an issue of the Buhari regime. This is something that's been cumulative over the years. Yes. So we need to deal seriously with the issue of funding because the government doesn't have the capacity to fund this economy.
All right,
given the size of this budget.
Yes, I'm afraid we're going to have to leave it there. Director General of the LCCI, Muda Yusuf, thanks for joining us and sharing your thoughts on the news at 10 tonight.